Class is now open. Look at this, an electrical duplex receptacle outlet. This is for beginners. Okay, that's why I titled it that way. If you don't know anything about replacing an electrical outlet, this video is for you. So stick around. I've got lots to teach you. Now I just happen to have an electrical duplex outlet just like this that I'm going to be replacing. And why am I going to be replacing it, you might ask? Well, it's right here in the hallway, and it's got this little thing on here. What do you suppose that is? If you have cats, and if they've been pissing on your carpet, or if you've just recently moved and they're not in a good environment that they're used to, they may start pissing on your carpet. Okay? That's why you want something like this. This is called Comfort Zone, and this is a value pack. It comes with the little outlet and these little containers. That's what this thing here is. Okay? We put one, our cat started pissing on this carpet, brand new carpet, and we thought, what are we going to do? We're going to have to get rid of the cat. What can we do? And so we put these in. We put one upstairs and we put one downstairs. We put one downstairs, way down in there, and it just shoots off a smell. You can't even really smell it. Humans can't smell it. Dogs can't smell it. It doesn't affect dogs. It just affects cats. And son of a gun, she has not pissed on this carpet that I know of since. Okay, but this electrical outlet is still working, so what gives? Why am I going to be replacing it with this one? Well, see this? I got like a paper napkin right under it. Now see, when you plug it in, see how this thing tilts? I think the reason why it's tilting like that is because this electrical outlet has been used. This condo is over 15 years old, and this one probably has been used by people to vacuum. If you've noticed, that's the only electrical outlet down low in this area to hook up a vacuum. Granted, there's an electrical outlet back there, but I'm not going to move that every time I need to plug in the vacuum. Okay, this is the plug that's nice for everybody to use for the last 15 years to plug in a vacuum. And after time, these little tines in here get kind of worn, and then it gets loose. Now see how this is like this? And if you leave these things like this, see how this is kind of going down at an angle? What happens is there's a wick in there. That little brown thing in there is a wick, and it soaks the liquid up into here. This heats it, and it sets on top of this top base, and then the aroma comes out into the air. Well, if you have it at a slight angle, you get some stuff up here. It has a tendency to have this liquid come down and collect on the bottom of this, and what do you suppose it does? It drips. And like this, you would never know it until it's probably too late, until it messes up your carpet, or if you have a lighter carpet, you're going to see a stain there. And so that's why I put this back in there like that, to keep that straight up and down. Well, I don't want to do that all the time, so that's why I thought I would replace that electrical outlet with this. These are stiffer, so when I plug this into here, the theory is, and what I'm hoping is that this thing is not going to sag. Now see, just recently I replaced another electrical outlet down here, and I've got that on my channel too, of course. I don't know what I've titled it. And I'm going to do another one up here, and I'm going to title it something different. Oh, here's a little culprit right here. The little pissing machine on the carpets, but now she doesn't really do that anymore. Yeah, that's a nice pit buzz. Oh, she likes it down here now. Now see, before I replace this one, look at it. This one drip, 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 drip. It's not dripping anymore, and I can feel underneath there. It's dry as bone. And that's what I'm going to do up here. Now, if you have an electrical outlet that's broken, or the the ground, where the ground plug gets plugged in, like right down here. Lots of times if this is cracked out, you should replace it. Or if your top piece is loose, or maybe your top piece is missing, you think, oh, I'll just leave it and I'll just plug it in down here. Well, that's an accident ready to happen. If you've got kids, if somebody pokes something in there, they could electrocute themselves or something. Or if you have a crack in here, if it's pushed in, whatever it is, you want to replace it, go down to the store. That's why I'm making this video. So before I replace this, I am going to show you a few things you may not know what's going on with an electrical outlet. If you've never installed an electrical outlet before, like I say, this is for beginners, so stick around. I got some interesting facts to tell you about this electrical outlet. That's funny. I'm just going to put it on this little cat stand right here, my little work bench, as it were. And we're going to take a few looks on here as to what's going on with this. Did you know you can get an electrical outlet like this at your local hardware store for about, this one was less than $1, 77 cents to be exact. You don't want to buy one in a cardboard box. Lots of times they'll have electrical outlets in a cardboard box like this. This happens to be a switch, but sometimes you'll find these in here, you know. But I usually like to get the ones that are loose in a tray, and they're the cheapest ones you can get. 77 cents for this. They work just as well as the $1.99 ones, or whatever. And this one happens to have the little round out faces like that. And then they also have rectangular ones. Have you seen the rectangular ones? If you've not seen the rectangular ones, I don't happen to have one here, but I have light switches here. See how it's rectangular? Well, they have electrical outlets like that, so then you would have to get a cover plate, you know, with the knockouts like this, okay? But it's always nice when you're replacing something, look at your existing electrical outlets, okay? See what kind they are. See, that's the one I'm going to replace. Now, see, that's the old school style is what I've got. That's what I call it, old school. And then it's got this cover plate with the two round knockouts. And you also look at all of your light switches and your electrical outlets, and hopefully they're all the same color. Now, these happen to be white. Now, in older houses, they're kind of ivory color. Okay, so you don't want to just run to the store and get an ivory one and put it down where a white one is. Or go to the store, yeah, I just need an electrical outlet, I don't know, I'll just pick one up, they're all the same. And you come back and it's an off-white one, it's the vanilla color, the off-white, and you put it in there and it doesn't match. I've seen that lots of times. Even sometimes they'll do that with GFI outlets. Let's take a look in here. Let's just see what they did. Oh, that's right. I've got the power. I've got the power turned off. Here's a GFI electrical outlet, and it happens to be white on white. Lots of times these are off-colored, and sometimes they'll put an off-colored one here with the white cover plate because they weren't paying attention when they went to the store. They didn't get the right color. Okay, so the first thing you want to know is get the right color. Okay? Match your existing conditions. See, here's one here in the bedroom. Yep, sure enough, it's that same kind. You take a peruse, check around. Yep, sure enough, white on white. All the light switches are white on white. White light switches, white cover plates, not the off-white. Okay, so everything's going to match. That's one of the first things I do before I go down to the hardware store and pick something out. Now, here's something else you're going to want to, well, here's something interesting I find on these. When I take a look at this, they have two different kinds. They have a 15 amp electrical outlet, and they also have 20 amp. Well, what's the difference? You might say, well, 15 amp, lots of times they'll have 15 amp, and those are generally the ones that you install in a house, okay? Like all your electrical outlets in your bedroom will probably be this one, 15 amp, but you know, in the kitchen, they're probably 20 amp. They're probably 20 amp, and lots of times 20 amp electrical outlets might have a line right there, and that might distinguish it. But then also you can look up in here, and I see on this one it says 15A right there. That tells me this is a 15 amp one. Here's another little thing right there. See that? 15A. 125V means 125 volt. Okay, 125 volt, 15 amp. And so I know this is the one that I want. The funny thing is, when you go down to your electrical panel, let's just go down there. This is a training video, and I'm trying to teach you some different things having to do with electrical. So count yourself lucky. Lots of times, I don't know where you're going to find something like this on a YouTube channel. They'll probably just tell you how to install an electrical outlet, and they tell you how to take it apart, put it back together, and all that kind of stuff. I'm giving you the meat and the potatoes, so to speak, on a few things having to do with electrical. Okay, so here's my electrical sub panel. And I'm going to look at this, and you can read all the different things. And the funny thing is, on that electrical outlet up there, it didn't list. It's upstairs and stuff. I actually found it under living room. And see, look at this. See all of these? These are your breakers. And they all happen to say 20 on them, don't they? See there? They all say 20. That's kind of odd. But here's the thing. Lots of times you'll have in your sub panel, you'll have lots of them that'll say 15 amp, 15, and you'll have some that say 20. The 15s are usually for your bedroom electrical outlets and your bedroom light fixtures and all kinds of stuff like that. But this happens to be a condo, and they thought, forget it. Let's just run everything 20 amp. Okay? And that's something important to know. Why is that? Because for 20 amp, all of your electrical wiring inside the house is going to be 12 gauge wire. Okay, 12 gauge wire. That's the size of the copper. Okay, solid 12 gauge wiring. And 15 amp circuits are usually run by 14 gauge wire. Now what's the difference? Well, the 14 gauge wire is a little bit thinner, a little bit smaller than your 20. I just happen to have a couple little pieces of wire here, and I was going to show you some different things. Now, I think one of these is 12 gauge wire, and one's 15 or 14 gauge wire. Okay, and it kind of makes a difference. Okay, I'm gonna strip off some. Here's my little strippers, and here's something else you're going to need to know. If you use strippers, they got little numbers on the side. See there? There's a 10. 12, 14, 16, 18. And you go, for 12 gauge wire, I'm going to use the hole, that's the 12, and I know that's the second one. Okay, I'm just going to set it on there, twist, pull it off. Kaboom. Okay, now this one I think is 14, so I count up 3, that's 14's right there, see? Right there, so I can strip that wire right there. Okay, so I'm going to pull that off carefully. Now, can you see the difference? See how this one's thinner than that? See there? And I can usually tell, when you're running wire after a while, you can generally tell this one can bend a little bit easier. The 14 gauge wire as opposed to the 12 gauge wire is a little bit stiffer. When I first looked at the ends of these, I was trying to see, here's an end that hasn't been stripped. When you first look at it, it's kind of hard to tell if one's thicker than the other until you strip the wire. Sometimes if it's kind of pushed in there, you might think, oh, these are both the same, but they're not. And that's a very important aspect to know, because when you're getting ready to install an electrical outlet, okay, this is a 15 amp, right? This is 15 amp. There's 3 different ways to install a wire on a 15 amp electrical outlet. Okay, let's just show you a couple of them. Here's one way, is on the back. See those little holes? You would poke the wire into the back. Okay, you'd poke it into the back. Another way you could do it is loosen up this side screw and put it on the side like that. Okay, and clamp the screw down. I've seen electricians do that. Some electrical outlets are set up that way. I don't like doing it that way because it has a tendency of possibly sliding out. There's a little concave area right there where you put your wire in there and let it set on there and clamp that down. If you're not paying attention, maybe you don't clamp it down properly, and when you push this into the wall, maybe this wire pops out or whatever. What I like to do, the third way is to wrap it around this, okay? Which would mean that you would take this and you would, I usually make about 1 inch long, okay, on the side. And I dropped a piece on the carpet. I'll have to find it later. And then you would take one of these holes here and put it on your wire, you know, let it stick out a little bit. I usually let it stick out about 1/8 of an inch, 3/16, and then I would turn the wire up and pull out. And you'd have yourself a nice little loop like that. Okay? Then when you put it on, you want the loop going the same direction as you're tightening this screw. So this would fit on there like that. See? And then you would tighten that down. But see, I would strip this a little bit longer. This wasn't 1 inch long. I would want to strip it about 1 inch long. Okay? So that at the end, well, let's just leave it the way it was. Okay, and I'll show you what happens if you don't have that long enough. After you get it attached on here, there we go. Okay, usually I like to have that end sticking out further. Then I can take my strippers and clamp down on it to get it so it's never going to fall off of that screw, and then I tighten up the screw. Okay, I don't want to just leave it like that without doing that. It's just one last little guarantee when you kind of tighten that and pinch it together on beyond the screw, to where the screw, once you tighten up the screw, you know that's never going to fall off. Okay, so bear with me now. Okay. So I'm gonna just cut this off, and I'm gonna show you some other things. Now, I was telling you there's a difference on 15 amp and 20 amp. Generally, if you're gonna see 20 amp circuit breakers, you know that the electrician has run. Do you think he's run any 15 or 14 gauge wire in the condo? No, he's not gonna run any of this wire at all, because 14 gauge wire is for 15 amp circuits. It's a smaller gauge wire. This is the 20 amp wire, which is the 12 gauge wire. So everywhere in the condo is running 12 gauge. So I know when I pull that electrical outlet apart, I have a good feeling that this wire is going to be wrapped around the side screw, or it's going to be attached on the side like that. It's not going to be in the back. Now, years ago, why do I know that? Well, years ago, they had this little hole a little bit bigger than that, so that you can run either 12 gauge wire in there or 14 gauge. Now, today's ones, they have this little bit smaller. Here's the 14 gauge wire. I'm having a hard time pushing it in that hole. Maybe if I push and push and push, it might go, but it's not designed to go in here. They did something smart. They thought, hey, we'll fix you. We don't want 14 gauge or 12 gauge wire run into a 15 amp electrical outlet. Okay, that's why. Let me just Here, I'll cut this back off. And I know it's the third one now. And if you ever have a question, you look on there, 10, 12, 14. It's the third one for the 14 gauge wire. 12 gauge wire, it's the second one. Okay? Now, the smaller wire slips right in there. Look at that. It slips right in, see? Now, and I can push it straight in. Uh-oh, I can't, look at that. I don't want it in there. But they do something really good there. They give you an option to get it, to take it out. You take a little screwdriver like this. If you want to pull these out, so let's say you made a mistake, or let's say you're going to replace an electrical outlet and you got 15 amp breakers, and you know the wire is 14 gauge wire, and so when you pull this out of the wall, you've got all these wires on the back. I used to just cut them off and then restrip them again, you know. But if your wire's not sticking out of the wall very far, the more you cut it, the shorter you get. So there's a little slot right there, just for a small screwdriver. See, it's a slot right below the top holes and right above the bottom holes. See there? You would push on that and then pull on the black. See there? I pushed right in there, and it's like a spring-loaded deal. Okay? Okay? I can do it wherever it is. As long as I pushing on there, get it in there, and this pulls right out. Okay? And you can see there's all kinds of interesting things on an electrical outlet that you might not have known. That's one. And then you might think, well, which side do I put the black wires? Which side do I put the white wires? Well, the white wires always go on the side. See this? Have you ever noticed the left-hand slot is longer than the right-hand slot? Left-hand slot is for the white wires. The other reason I know that, you turn it on the side. See these? These are silver screws. Silver screws are for the white wires. Gold screws, see on this side, they're gold. That's for the black wires. And then there's an interesting little thing on the back. If you wanted to really look at it, there's more wording up in there, and it says hot. Push to hot, and that's meaning you can push on those to get the wire out. And hot means black. The black wire is always the hot wires. Okay? That's for that side. That's for these. This is black. And it doesn't, you know, when you connect one, this side little clip right here connects both of these. So if you only have one black wire hooked up to here, the power is actually going to both sides, because this little thing right here makes it like that. Just this little tab connects this screw to that screw. So does it matter, hey, which side do I put which black wire do I put on top, bottom? Well, it doesn't really matter for that particular thing. And on the other side, you got the same thing. This thing is connected together with these two side screws, and that the green screw is always for the ground. Okay, and let's look at some other stuff. Well, that it said hot, so I know this is the hot side. This other side, I look, and it says white. Okay, and on lots of electrical outlets now, it even tells you right here, for installation instructions, go to leviton.com//instructions. Well, if you want more information about an electrical outlet, you can do that. Okay, what else is on here? There's even a gauge, a wire stripping gauge. You might think, how far do I strip this? Like if I'm going to push it in the back, okay, with the let's get the thinner wire out here. Let's say we're using let's say we're going to put this on a 15 amp circuit. We're using the 14 gauge wire. Is this long enough, do you think, to put in there and to get in there far enough or not? Is there well, do you just guess or what? No. Right, look at that right there. It's kind of hard to see. You See it right there? It says, I got to look in the sun here. It says strip gauge. You see that right there? Strip gauge. Son of a gun. I can strip it. Now I can hold it up there like that. And is that long enough? No. I got to go another 1/8 of an inch. So I go another 1/8 of an inch and I can eyeball that. I'm going to strip that off carefully. And I'm going to look at that. And that's probably pretty close. If I wanted to check, I can hold it right in there. See that little notch right there? I can hold it there. And I can push it in there. That's pretty close. It's still just a hair short, isn't it? So I can strip it a little bit longer. And I don't have to do that for every wire. It's like if you forgot or something, you can do this on the very first one, let's say. Okay. I hold it up in there. That's really good, isn't it? See there? Okay, then I could take my tape measure and I can measure this. I think it's a little over 5/8 of an inch. You see there, it's a long 5/8 of an inch. Right there. And I could have also measured this with my tape measure and measure from there over. And it looks like just a little bit over 5/8 of an inch. Okay, then after I strip my first ones, I can look at that, I can measure that with my tape measure, whatever. Okay, but now that's for 15 amp. And when I pull the old one out of the wall, I know it's going to have 12 gauge wire on there. So what I usually do is I'll strip this. Here's my 12 gauge wire. I just swapped it out. Okay, and I try to eyeball, and I try to make that about 1 inch. And I will look at that. Now see, I'm pretty close at 1 inch right there. Okay, that way when I get it through there, I'll stick it out maybe 1/8, 3/16, or maybe even a hair more than that, and then I'll turn it up. Okay, like that. So that once, and then you got to kind of slightly bend it, and see with the 12 gauge wire, sometimes you have to kind of irk it like that, and then sometimes you have to kind of put it on at an angle, and then after it goes on, then you slide it into place like that. Now see how that piece is sticking over? Then I would take this and hold it away from there so that I can grab that right there and kind of pinch that together, then pull the slop out and then tighten the screw up. You see what I mean? I'm not going to do that right now, right? I'm just trying to show you. Okay, so all those different things come into play when you're installing an electrical outlet like this. Now here's one more thing to know about this. See those little grooves right there? See, there's a slight groove, indentation right there. Here's another one right there. You look on these tabs, one there, one there. Well, I can take those off. I can take a pair of pliers, I can take this and bend it back and forth and pull those off. The only reason why you're going to do that is if you put this in a cut-in box. Let's say that the box is on the outside of the sheetrock wall, then this rectangular bit fits inside that box, and you don't want these tabs, because if you have these little tabs here, that's going to be on the outside of the box, and that's going to let it stick out further. Your cover plate might not fit tight to your wall. Okay, and so then you would pop those off. If I broke those off, then I would save those and put in my nail bag, and I'd use those for little washers. I can use for shim washers for later on or whatever. And I've done that several times. Okay, so those are all the different things about this electrical outlet. Now at the store, You ever seen those little plastic things for kids, those little guards that you plug in there? You got one for the top, one for the bottom, and it's kind of a pain to pull those off. And it's like to make your electrical outlet child-proof so that they don't stick anything in there and electrocute themselves. Well, they have some electrical outlets at the store that you can buy nowadays. They're about $3, $3 or $4, and there's a little plate that goes across there. So when you get ready to plug something in, that plate is on a spring-loaded deal, and it pops out so that you can plug something in there for your top. And here you would just see white because that plate would be on there across there, and that would make it child-proof. Okay, so but then you would have, you know, if you wanted that in all your bedrooms, all your lower electrical outlets, you'd have to replace all your electrical outlets in your house or whatever, if you wanted to make them child-proof that way. Or if you're doing a new house, you can get all child-proof electrical outlets, let's say. And I saw that the other time I was at the store, okay? Now here's another thing to realize, and I don't know why they do it, but see, as I told you, this is a 15 amp, and I know that because it says 15A there, it says 15A over there. They let you run electrical 15 amp electrical outlets on 20 amp circuits, because in this condo, all of the electrical outlets, the lower ones, are 15 amp electrical outlets. Okay, and they did that, and they're running them on the 20 amp circuits. I don't know why code lets you do that, why inspectors let you do that, because in the kitchen for 20 amp, you should have 20 amp electrical outlets connected onto a GFI breaker, like for your blender, your toaster, your a mixer, an automatic mixer, stuff like that you have on your counter in your kitchen, let's say. Or your bathrooms. Lots of times your bathrooms will be on 20 amp circuits, and then you're going to want 20 amp electrical outlets, 20 amp GFI outlets, and that kind of thing, because you're running motors and stuff. But lots of times on your different plugs inside your bedrooms and stuff, lots of times you're going to plug in a vacuum, or you may plug in a lamp, by your bed, or your charger for your phone, stuff like that. And so lots of times you're not going to overload a circuit. You don't want to overload a circuit with too much power on a 15 amp circuit, because then it could trip your breaker, or your breaker may not trip, and it may be your wire fries up in your wall, or something sparks right at your electrical outlet, or something like that. Okay, now let's just see if my hypothesis is right on that for these particular electrical outlets in this condo. I said they should be they're probably 15 amp, and I can probably see that right there, or right up there on the existing electrical plug, the one that I'm going to be replacing out here. Okay, let's just for ducks. I mean, I didn't install this stuff 20 years ago, 15 years ago in this condo. I'm making the assumption because lots of houses you have that, but because this is condo, they shouldn't really have that, and maybe the inspector caught it. I don't know. Let's just, I'm going to be curious to know. And I've already turned the power off to this here, and I'm gonna see if I can quickly see that. I put little foam deals in here for insulation. If you have exterior walls or even interior walls, a lot of times you put your hand up there. If you feel cold air coming through there, you can fix that by having these little foam pads that you can put in there. And I did that on all my electrical outlets and my light switches throughout the condo. There weren't that many. And I thought, I'm just going to do that just for the sake of argument. I'm going to get my electrical tester just to show you. that it's off. I've got the breaker off downstairs. I had to check 6 or 7 different breakers, and then I had to wiggle it in here and stuff. Okay. And I don't even have to take this out of the wall. I'm just gonna turn my my light on my cell phone. Okay. I'm gonna look on there, and it says 15A there, and it's hard to see that up there. Now see, this one happens to be written down at the bottom, and there's paint over it and all that kind of stuff, but I can't really see. I could scratch the paint off and see, but right there at the plastic it says 15A. All of the electrical outlets in this condo, as I thought, are 15 amp. And I don't know, I can't say all of them. Maybe the ones in the kitchen aren't. I don't know that for sure or not, unless I take a cover plate off in the kitchen just for kicks. Wouldn't that be something? I mean, eventually I probably should know this already, shouldn't I? I mean, I think you want to know this. Let's just go down there for kicks. I'm thinking they ran 20 amp electrical outlets here, and I'm not sure if they did or not. Now see, here's an electrical outlet here. Here's one here. This is a GFI, and that GFI. Here's another GFI here. Now see, this GFI probably controls those 2 electrical outlets. That GFI right there probably controls that one. And I don't know if I can quickly find out on a GFI if I can see on here without taking the cover off, or the maybe I'll take that off down there. Hey, since I've gone this far, this is part of your lesson. I'll be right back and we'll get it checked out.